Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my God!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will sing the phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow with whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Plotaholics Podcast. I'm Shane Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, by the most recent person to decide to give his life up to a greater cause, Bryan Tann.
Yeah, that is correct. I have decided that two will become one.
It was either that, or I was going to say Senior Covington.
Hey, well,
And I don't know what that means. It was just
neither do I, but I'm
just
all
a couple
about
of words that I thought of, and that's why I pulled the ripcord on that one and decided to go with something about
Well, I like the last name.
or whatever.
Well, I like the last name Covington. It sounds very dignified, very, very bourgeois.
I think I lived in a town called Covington one time, and Bryan, would you like to introduce those who are not in the know to the lady sitting to your left or right? I don't really know which side of you she's on your side of the
My
room,
right,
so.
my right, your left.
Right.
Yep. This is, as of everyone listening to the podcast in the traditional sense, my wife Sharon.
Hi.
So you guys hear about Sharon all the time. Here she is. Now, as we're recording, there you go. Now, as we're recording this is why, for those that are watching this on the YouTube, there's an asterisk by her name, because as we're recording this, she's not Sharon Tann yet, but she will be in 6 days from when we're recording this.
Yeah.
So
That's right. Excellent. Congratulations to the two of you.
Congratulations.
I'm joined by Michelle, my non-married life partner.
There you go.
And that's we decided to make it a bit of a family affair here. It's a special edition of the podcast because, Bryan, this is strange, but we are simultaneously live and pre-recorded in a way that we haven't been in maybe ever. We are live right now on Twitch, and this will not go out to our pre-recorded listeners for another entire week. So,
Yeah. So, listen, maybe if you guys want to get in on the shenanigans while it was happening, maybe you should join us on Twitch.
yeah, that's right. Find the feed. This week, Bryan, I don't know if you know how long we've been talking about doing this, but we identified Wedding Crashers as the film that we would do for your wedding when you originally announced it.
God.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
Right.
Forever.
It was whenever we first started the pod, we said this would be the movie that we would do at your wedding. Back then, obviously, like we had designs on doing it in person, and then we were going to be there and all of that. And then, I can't remember what happened, but something happened, and then it wasn't able to. And so anyway, so then it kept getting punted as these things do when a health crisis arises. And so here we are now, some 3 years later, I think for us, now finally getting around to doing Wedding Crashers.
Yeah. And this movie has been on the docket for a long time. This is actually one of the movies that we talked about even doing, like when we were first talking about actually having a podcast. We even said, man, we got to do Wedding Crashers. Yeah, we do have to do Wedding Crashers. That movie's freaking hilarious. And then it was decided, this is going to be the wedding episode. Mm-hmm. And then, punt. And finally, here we are.
Yeah.
And then, of
the
course,
final.
fate decided she had to make this even more interesting by giving us the Rona.
Yeah.
So thanks, Lady Faye.
Well, and now at least you guys have that out of the way, and it sucks that you didn't get to do your bachelor party because that was this weekend.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
supposed to
Yep. But
and you
but
know,
we've both been informed that our bachelor and bachelorette parties, respectively, are not canceled. They are on postponement.
Yep.
all right, that's what we like to hear.
be like June.
So it's probably going to be sometime in June.
All right,
It'll be before Bryan Jr. comes for his summer visit, because who wants to be hungover from a night of debauchery when you've got a 13-year-old in the house?
yeah. Now,
Probably.
well, what are the? Do you guys talk about what you're doing at your respective bachelorette parties?
She knows more about it than I do, because at first I wasn't going to have a bachelor party. I didn't want a bachelor party. Then I was told I was going to have one.
Yes, you needed one.
And then my best man wasn't doing things that I thought he was supposed to do. So I just sort of went on this whole, I don't want one. You can't make me have one. No, 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 no. So then everyone started planning it behind my back. And I just said, fine. But if I have to have any hand in planning it, I won't be involved in it. I won't show up. So she actually knows more about it than I do.
Nice.
Because the lady who the woman, shout out to Alana Bauer, who's doing our wedding cakes, the wedding cake, groomsmen cake, and all that.
Yes, he did say plural.
Yeah, cakes. She actually had a hand in planning both bachelor party and bachelorette parties. So they were really working together along with my best man Nick to get it all set up. So
Nice.
Sharon knows more about what was supposed to happen than I do, and she actually sort of gave me a profound realization that I didn't know was actually going to be a thing. I thought it was something that was in jest, but apparently it's really going to happen. So I'm like, oh, okay then.
It was supposed to. I'm thinking it's still going to.
Brian,
Okay.
before we get too far into things, I wanted to read a little well wish that we received in listener mail for you and Sharon. This is from our long-term listener and supporter, Al, who is always writing in with thoughtful insight. And I'll tell you, spoiler alert, this one's a little wild. But it's a good time. It's one of those, you know, the meme that, like, I'm not gonna lie, they had us in the first half. Like, yeah. it's sort of one of those moments. So Al says, Brian, while I myself have never been married, I think that when a couple decides to get married, it's got to be something a little bit akin to what I would imagine it would be like to be in a karaoke bar and Porky Pig takes the mic and then the DJ announces that the song chosen is Hey Jude. At that point, one doesn't want to be a rude jerk and leave, so instead one gets really comfortable because one knows that this is going to take a long, long time. Marriage is like that in a sense that when a couple decides they are comfortable enough being best friends, lovers, roommates, and business partners, no matter what happens, they are ready to dig in for the long haul. I am really happy that the two of you have found the best person for each of you to be able to have that level of long-term comfort with each other. I wish the two of you all the best as you move forward together as one.
That's awesome, man. I love Al. Al is like, he is like the most dedicated listener, man. I love this guy.
Yeah, it's good. He is really a dedicated listener. He gave us this really long analysis of Heather's, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So
nice. See, and people like Al are why I love doing this show.
Yeah. So I'm happy that you found the person that you want to sit through Porky Pig's rendition of Hey Jude with.
Hey. Actually, I don't want to make fun of people with speech impediments.
Yeah.
I would actually stick around and just chug my drink because it's like, yeah, this is gonna be fun.
That's all you can do during a bit like that. Now, Brian, Wedding Crashers is on the agenda. Would you like to slice us off a little bit of a tanopsis?
Absolutely. Do you want to do the tanopsis?
Go ahead, you can do it.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. So, Wedding Crashers is a film of two guys who've decided that, you know what? I want to have my cake, eat it too, and get the milk for free. As they've decided, you know what? I have nothing to do this weekend. I'm just going to show up to a wedding, get some free food, and get some sex. Until they crash a very particular wedding with a particular family. All kinds of the hijinks they do ensue.
Oh man, I don't know what.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
Speaking of crashing,
Right.
Whoa!
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast,
Podcast
everybody.
Crasher.
The third Plotaholic and wedding crasher extraordinaire, Joseph Compton.
Joseph
hello.
Aloysius Compton in the house.
Surprise!
Hey! That's
Yeah,
awesome. Joe.
How are you?
I am good. I know the invitation said tie, but I had to wear the swag.
Hey man, you got. We can't be mad at you for wearing the swag.
Not at all. Not at all. Especially, I have to order myself some new swag because
Yes, you
my
do.
swag is a dress now.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what's
so-
great is that Joe's got his hat and I've got my hat.
There you
Yeah.
go.
That's right. Yeah, Brian, your hat really.
Shane's got his hat too.
I do have my hat. Yeah, Brian, your hat is becoming like a mainstay here on the pod.
Yeah, I can never just take it off. Even there's been days where I've taken my dog out for a walk and it's been hot out and I'm still wearing the hat. I'm not wearing a jacket, but I'm wearing the hat.
Yeah.
It really is.
Um,
I'm waiting for Stewie Griffin to come up to me and go with the flu.
Well, Joe, I mean, I wanted to give Joe an opportunity as the third Plotaholic to give you his well wishes here on the weekly eve of your big day. So, Joe, if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I'll just toast to the two of you, and I'll make this short and sweet for the first time in my life. I just adore the both of you, and I'm so happy for you guys, and it's just so amazing, and you guys are so amazing, and yeah, it's gonna be a great time, and you guys deserve every minute of it to enjoy it, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your life, and I just really appreciate you guys so much, and congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much. We're so happy to have you as a member of the tribe.
Now, Joe, are you going to hang out and talk Wedding Crashers with us, or?
Sure, I can if you'd like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brian, what do you think? Is there room at this party for a fifth?
Oh, there's always room.
Absolutely.
There's always room for Joe Compton in the house.
That's what we like to
Well, now
hear.
you
All right.
have five. You have 5 people and 5 shots. So there
That's
you go.
right.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, well, we've got to cap this party at 5, I guess. We've got the exact perfect number.
There you
So,
go.
all right, so we'll kick things off. This movie opens with, I think, just a rocket fire of a montage. That, like, in order to establish sort of like the order of operations here, right?
Right.
And I felt like when I have not seen this film since it came out in 2005. So I was revisiting it for the first time and watching
Same.
this montage. I thought, this thing is going to be nonstop. They're going to beat the brakes off of this thing. And then as soon as that opening montage was over, I felt like we got bogged down.
Yeah, it was really. I remember all of the hype and the press for this movie. And when me and my buddies finally sat around and watched it during our hangout night, I was like, huh.
Well, so I'll start. I'm going to bring the ladies in on this particular question because I think that this is something that kept bothering me, at least in the first like 20 minutes or so. And that was the idea that this is a trope in like the early 2000s. How I Met Your Mother sort of suffers from the same thing, that these guys are able to manipulate women, and the women are just so stupid that they buy everything, right? Like, how does that feel to Michelle or Sharon? Like, how did you guys feel watching this movie that, at least for a very long time at the beginning, was making women out to be just these like dumb objects? Michelle, would you like to go first?
I mean, not great, but I think that the whole idea of, weddings and hooking up and everything, it kind of crosses genders. Like, women aren't oblivious to hookups at weddings. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that they were all dumb. Like, some of them, I think, knew what they were getting into. Like, and, some of them were clearly manipulated. But I didn't take as much offense to it. But, I mean, obviously, because people can lie to you any time of the day. It doesn't have to be a wedding.
Well, and I would say that, like, in the grand scheme of the film, like, that we do get female characters that are smarter. But just that opening montage felt like just the Barney Stinson sort of, like, lineup of just, like, here's a line of bullshit. Eat it, and they all were. Sharon, what were you gonna say?
No, I agree with Michelle on some points, but it was like, why wouldn't you ask a few more questions?
Yeah,
like, you're really gonna take them at their word? Like you said,
there was
time.
There was the one where they kept using the line like, "We lost a lot of good men that day," and she goes, "On the Yankees."
Yeah,
and he was like, "Oh yeah, to trades and I was just like, she was like pretty close to like figuring it out. You know what I mean?
I think that a lot of instances though too, and maybe I'm maybe I'm misreading it, but this is also an instance where it's like, look, women are into sex just as much as men are. Women just aren't dogs about it like men are. And so I think that a lot of these times, I think these women, they knew they were being fed lines, but they're like, you know what? It's a wedding and all this is going on. I want to get laid.
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, so my whole thing with that is like, if that's the thing, right? If it's just like, we're at a party or we're at a wedding, let's bang it out. Then why all the pretense, right? Like, why the crashing at all, right? Why not just walk up and be like, yo, do you want a little bit of this wiener?
Because at least for me now, with all that I'm going through, and I know how much it costs to pay for a wedding and a reception.
Oh, so you're just there for the dance, right?
I don't know who the hell you are. You best get to step.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How do these people? Don't you have to account for the number of plates?
Exactly.
Yes,
like,
you do.
And that's the first thing I'm saying. Like, how the hell are these guys crashing a wedding when you got to have numbers, dude? Like,
I know.
Like, it ain't enough to be able to, like, number one, how is someone going to come to the wedding and you don't know, like, who they are?
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like, we have established.
Yeah, when Bill and I got married, there were people there that we did not invite.
Wow.
His one relative invited some of their relatives from out of town, and they came.
Fuck out of here, dude. I swear to God. Number one, I know who's supposed to be at my wedding and who's not supposed to be at my wedding. And if there's somebody there that I don't know and they're not a plus one, I'll be a bouncer at my own damn wedding.
I'm here. Am I late?
Speaking of people that are supposed to be at your wedding, like, I thought that we capped this party at 5. What?
Katie is number one. Everyone knows by now. Katie is never late nor on time. She arrives precisely when she needs to.
That's right. I thought also Katie, who is a longtime supporter of us here on the Plotaholics. She was on one of our very first specials when we talked about Game of Thrones. And then she's been a recurring guest over on Tan Talks with you, Bryan. I thought, why not give Katie an opportunity to stop in and give her well wishes as well? So, Katie.
All right. Glasses up. Bryan, Sharon, you guys are the most adorable couple. I am so happy, even though I don't get to be there, that you guys are finally getting to have this wedding that you deserve. You guys deserve every bit of happiness. You guys are a perfect couple. You support each other. You love each other. Oh, my heart goes out to you. Best wishes.
Thank you.
Now, Katie, I don't assume that you have done the homework for today, but
There was homework? Shit.
I'll ask you. We're sort of talking, and you probably heard some of this while you were backstage. We're talking opening montage of Wedding Crashers, and this was a trope. I told Michelle, I said this belongs to this brand of movie, like all things in pursuit of pussy, right? And it is like problematic to me in a way. And there's this montage at the beginning where they're just feeding these women the most unbelievable bullshit, and they're all just eating it up and then going home with them and banging them, right? So how does that trope play with you? And because I think it's tired. I don't think that we see it that much anymore.
I don't think that it's not that you don't see it anymore. I think it's just understood that it's out there. And if it's mutually accepted on both sides, yeah, go ahead.
So then, well, let me
line. I'll pretend it to laugh and giggle, and we'll just go do our thing.
So let me ask this of the three ladies here. Then, are we to read the women in this film not as idiots, but just as like horny,
like hopeless romantic?
Not, I don't even think like. No, I'm thinking like they're just
open with their sexuality.
I don't even like they see these guys, and this I'm sort of working up to another point here, right? They see these guys and they're like, I'm gonna bang that dude, right? And so then he comes to them and gives them this bullshit, and then they just like, all right, yeah, fine, whatever, like let's get it, right? So like the line doesn't even matter to them because they've just decided already that they're gonna get loose at this wedding, right? And so now I think my question is, how am I to believe that these two guys get these women? Like if it's not that these women are really buying their lines, then it must be something else, right? That they see Owen Wilson as a suitable mate.
I don't see how.
But are they seeing him? It's been a while since I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Are they trying to get into a relationship, or are they just doing the?
They're just trying to get it.
Wedding, drinking.
Yeah, they're just literally crashing weddings to bang. That's literally.
But the girls that they're with.
The girls are actually in. The girls are actually in. Like the girls are actually guests at the wedding.
Like,
okay, so
strangers.
they're different
They're strangers.
set of girls than each time. It's not like the same girl.
Right.
They're all perfect strangers.
Then it's just a random hookup.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I just feel like
I don't see Vince Vaughn and Owen. If you're gonna have Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson doing that doesn't work. Like I would think that you would want to have guys that like women are gonna like. Yeah, if I had a hall pass, I'd hit that. Like
Bradley Cooper.
If you're having to crash weddings for dates, though, you're not in that caliber. You're
right. Exactly.
Right.
So I want to know
a bit of desperation maybe on each.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what these guys are, they're the guys at the bar that hit only on the drunk women.
Well, okay, so like I would
if they're gonna go home with somebody.
I would
or
totally
the
buy
bridesmaid
that.
that's clearly unhappy that she's not the one getting married.
I would totally buy that if in most cases at the beginning of the film, the guys weren't just scoping out the hottest women at the wedding. Like there's not a moment in most of these cases where we see that woman's like perceived weakness or whatever. They're just hot.
Oh, all these women are way outside of their league. I'm sorry. Like neither one of these guys are anyone. Like I'm comfortable enough in my.
Like I'm supposed to believe that these are the only two single dudes at a wedding with 50 single women.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of guys that are way hotter than them. Like I'm sorry, if Bradley Cooper was in one of these roles, and like Owen Wilson or Vince Vaughn is just his wingman, that's different. Or if you get, say, Mark Wahlberg and The Rock in these roles, that's different.
Yeah.
But it's Owen Wilson, like, and this is 2005. You mean to tell me you can't get two handsomer guys than Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson? The only way this is more ridiculous is if it's actually in the leading role. In the leading role, Ben Stiller and Will Ferrell.
I was gonna say Jack Black and Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh,
wow!
I just opened my mouth a little.
Though I would watch that movie.
But see, they're not playing on the classic attractiveness; they're playing on the charisma. Because like,
manipulation is a really charisma is a really funny way of saying manipulation. But yeah.
Yes.
I also think.
But that's his character. He plays that character every time.
For sure.
I also think that they know the other single dudes at the wedding probably because they were actually invited to the wedding, so they probably know those guys. So there might be an air of mystery to these guys. I don't know, something to that effect.
That's true. That's true.
And it being 2005, the lack of like social media, they can't like verify the story. These days, you can look up anybody and figure
Yeah.
out if it's true or not.
Yeah, I think that we're all like a little more hesitant to buy people's stories today anyway, right?
Yeah.
Just because we can't all play detective. Katie, I don't want to hold you up if you have other things to do. I know you didn't watch the movie and prep for it, so if you want to hang out, you're more than welcome. But if you want to skedaddle, I understand. No hard feelings.
I can hang out for a few more minutes. I got to be out of here at 3, but I do want to hang out.
Cool. Love it. You love to see it. All right. So that opening montage aside, we just plow through 3 weeks of wedding season in the name of exposition.
I love the fact they really just call it's wedding season.
Right.
And can we just note these guys are divorce mediators. Divorce mediators that for fun they crash weddings from May to June.
Well, they don't have respect for it. As a divorce mediator, you're seeing only the negative. So to them, marriage is just an annoying piece of paper that's going to be fun to get rid of.
But a free party.
Yeah.
Yeah, this really does remind me in a lot of ways of The Wedding Singer, but as a buddy comedy.
I love The Wedding Singer.
I love The Wedding Singer, and I think The Wedding Singer is a much better movie than this.
It really
agree.
is. It absolutely is. And it's in a better decade as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think what this movie does, what the montage establishes, is that there's no real hero in this movie. There's no real good person. Everybody has some kind of wicked, kind of ickiness to them.
To them, yeah.
Well, the only good guy is Rachel McAdams, right?
Yeah.
But
Till the
even, right? Yeah, exactly. And because her only real crime is being with someone that she clearly doesn't love, that clearly has no respect for. And I swear to God, every time Bradley Cooper acts the way he does toward her, I'm like, Bradley, I'm so disappointed in you. I know your mother raised you better than that.
Speaking of Bradley Cooper, at this point in his career, is there ever been another person that looked more like a normal dude that was just like wildly handsome?
I am mad at how sexy Bradley Cooper is.
Bradley Cooper looks like a dude that I could have gone to high school with, while also looking like he just stepped off of Mount Olympus, right? Like, how is that in the same person?
Where did you go to?
Dude, all I know is that Bradley Cooper looks like the guy that, like, he grew up on your street with you, but at the same token, you saw him sneaking into every bedroom in the neighborhood. And a lot of those bedrooms he had no business being in because that woman didn't even have kids.
I mean,
not yet.
I don't know the IMDb page like Brian probably knows it, but is this his last villainous role too? I mean, he becomes like the hero and the lead.
This is among his last villainous roles, yeah, because then after this he goes into the Hangover and then going from there. So yeah, I think this is his last villainous role.
He's so good as a villain. I don't know why he doesn't revisit that.
I think Hollywood is much like professional wrestling was back in the 80s, where there's more money in being the hero, the good guy, because there aren't many films where the antagonist is the lead, and it's only been, you look at within the last 10 years, the one film that really comes to mind is Infinity War and Endgame, where you had a villain that was the star.
Yeah.
You don't really get that much. And I think with Bradley Cooper, I think that he's got those hero checks, man.
Well, but he also doesn't necessarily always play the clean hero. I'm thinking A Star Is Born.
Anti-hero. Yeah.
Right. Like a more rugged, like anti-hero sort of character that's a little
He's
I
more
think
rocket.
Silver Linings. I think Silver Linings Playbook. I think Silver Linings Playbook illustrates that quite a bit. He's very. Sometimes you're annoyed with him. Sometimes you don't really like him, but he's still that lovable character in some respect.
Right. Yeah. Even when you look at his role as Face in the A-Team, which is criminally underrated in my opinion, you like him but you're so annoyed by him because he is so
I
childish.
didn't realize that was him.
You didn't realize he was an A-team? Oh yeah, I can kind of understand that because I think the A-team especially. I think because Sharon's like, I didn't realize he was in the A-team, but it's like, yeah, that was him. And he actually, I think
I liked him. I liked him as Rocket. That's a really good anti-hero character that lets him really lean into, the more despicable side of things.
And you don't even realize that's his voice. He's really good at voice acting because you rarely realize that's him. I love Bradley Cooper. That man is national freaking treasure.
Yeah, so
You've got too many talents.
After we churned through, and we're sort of like jumping forward a bit, because after we work our way through those 3 weeks of wedding season, we finally we realized we've got one more wedding to go, right? And this is sort of the World Series of weddings, and we're probably going to lose a lot of good men out there. But this is Christopher Walken's daughter. Christopher Walken here, another like person that I was surprised to see in this movie. After so long, I had forgotten he was here. And this is when Walken is kind of peak Walkening, right? Like this is when he's like really, like he knows what Christopher Walken is now. And he's like leaning into that whole Walken thing. This is after he tap danced in that Fatboy Slim video and all of that stuff, right?
And post Joe Dirt.
I love
as well.
that. Does your mother sew? Tell her to sew this.
It's the wrong tone. Step me in the face with a iron.
You're talking about my man all wrong.
I still remember. You ever watch DBZ Abridged?
Mm-mm.
Where basically, so they're doing voiceovers over Dragon Ball Z episodes comedically, and there's the one scene where Vegeta grabs Goku, slams him to the ground, and he goes, "What's the opposite of Christopher Walken?" What? And he stomps on his back. Christopher Reeve! And he's like,
no.
"That's it, poor taste!" And he just starts stomping on his back again. So every time I hear Christopher Reeve, that hurts.
Oh man. So at this wedding, we are introduced to really the plot of the film, right? And that is that Owen Wilson's character falls in love with Rachel McAdams' character. You also get the sort of side plot of Vince Vaughn having a relationship with this stage 5 clinger. Who is played by either Isla Fisher or Amy Adams. And
Can never tell those two apart.
Me neither.
Yeah, they are very hard to tell apart. Like redheads of the world unite.
Yeah,
But their
oftentimes
face
Michelle
shape, their mouth
looks
shape,
at me and thinks that
everything's so similar.
I'm Amy Adams.
You really are. And dude, she is kind of scary in this movie. Like I like Isla Fisher a lot, but she scares the hell out of me in this movie. Like, this is the kind of woman that you do her foul, you come home from work and your pets are dead and all the dick holes of your drawers are cut out.
That's a really specific,
That is
like
oddly specific.
yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, so like the boiled bunny in Fatal Attraction, right? That's where he got the bunny, the dead pets thing. But the like cutting a hole in your underpants where your wiener goes, Brian, feels like a very specific detail from maybe your past.
Who did you piss off?
One of my ex-girlfriends, I used to have
this is a real story. There's no way.
Yeah. I had an issue with a certain cut of underpants that the way they would hug me, it would force my pubic hairs to go within my area. And because of the way the underwear would hug, it would force the hugging of the flesh, which my hair would get caught and would tug. So I would take a step. It's like, like it was like I was constantly having hairs yanked out. So I would try to situate in this underwear a particular way. And if the little whole area wasn't just right, I couldn't do it. So she got mad at me about something. I can't even remember what. I told some joke that she didn't think was funny. So she really cut all of my underwear. So no matter what, until I realized what happened, anytime I went somewhere, it was like someone was yanking my pubes out because I couldn't get the proper set. And that's when I started wearing boxers so that I wouldn't go through that anymore.
Roger, Roger. Did not go where I thought it was.
That was a wild ride, man. Because at one point I thought, I was like, oh, she's going to help him out, right? Like, I felt like that, but yeah.
No,
cool, man.
She purposely cut my drawers so that I was constantly having pains in the crotch. And I'm walking down, or if I'm walking around, I'm like grabbing at myself. People are thinking I got crabs and whatnot because I'm like rubbing at, trying to adjust. And God damn it!
Welcome to Plotaholics After Dark.
Everyone
now knows a way to get revenge, you know.
That revenge was definitely on point, man. Kudos to her. That was some good payback.
Well,
Oof.
I don't know how we move on from that particular revelation.
Stage 5 clinger, go.
Stage 5 clinger.
It's a good time to bring up the crazy hot theory.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about the crazy hot theory. This is something that Barney Stinson talks about on How I Met Your Mother as well. Obviously, these are two media properties that are very, very much products of the same time, you know. How I Met Your Mother started in a similar time, right? And so in an episode of How I Met Your Mother, Barney talks about the crazy hot paradox. And he essentially draws like an X and a Y axis and says, you know, the crazier that a potential mate is, they have to be proportionately hot in order to deal with the crazy. But if it skews too far toward crazy, and that person is not quite hot enough to offset it, then you've got a problem. And this film, I think, really does explore that in a way that I think is productive, because there's a lot of at the beginning of the film where you're like, yeah, okay, so Isla Fisher is crazy, but like she's also hot enough to offset it. I'm wondering at what point, this is probably a question for the men here. At what point in the film did she skew too far to crazy that you would say that it overwhelmed her hotness?
The toilet scene for me, probably.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's a little unnerving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Joe, could you walk us through the toilet scene? Just give us a quick play-by-play there for those who maybe haven't seen it in a little
while. I'm trying to recall the exact, but it's basically him on the toilet, and she comes and, threatens, I guess, don't betray me, kind of thing, don't, give me what I want, and she's got a hold of something that, is very precious to all of us.
My precious.
Yeah. Brian, you had a similar reaction there. That's the moment for you.
That definitely gets it. That's definitely a whoo.
I'll float this question to the room, actually, because this family is also full of crazies. I'm wondering, for everyone here, what is the moment, like how much should a family's crazy influence your willingness to stay or leave? This is not really about the film specifically, more of a personal question. Michelle, would you like to go first?
Oh. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. You can deal with a little bit of crazy, but I mean, everybody from grandma to mom to brother to every single person was a little nutso.
Yeah, I think at that dinner when grandma is being so homophobic, like angrily, hatefully homophobic to the brother, like that's probably a red flag moment. But at the same time, I think a lot of us have probably been in relationships with people whose grandmother was pretty far gone, right? Because grandmothers are often far gone.
Yeah.
I think if Jane Seymour walked in and tried to seduce me, I think at that point I'm flowing out the window. I'm jumping out the window.
Right, but Joe, before or after?
Yeah,
do you go ahead do you go ahead and like you're like, well, this is how I'm going out?
Well, I'm gonna keep that close to the vest. All right? I'm not
I'm not gonna lie. Jane Seymour can have what she wants, and then I'm dipping. I mean, I'll be like, look, man, I'm a man. I tried to stand up for myself. I said, could you please? And
she overwhelmed me.
She overwhelmed me.
Yeah, look, I couldn't say no to Jane Seymour. She was just there, man. She said, look, this is how it's gonna be. And my mom always told me, respect your elders.
Yeah. I actually was really partial to the scenes with the brother, even though he was a lunatic. Like the fact that he painted that painting. And then he was like, I'm taking my painting back. And he was like, that was a gift. He was actually like upset that he was going to take the painting.
He really was, dude. Like, honestly, that for me would have been enough is enough. Like, I swear, if I'm sleeping Friday night and one of Sharon's brothers ends up in my bed, he's showing up at the wedding the next day with a shiner.
But wasn't Gloria just in the room? How did those two not see each other?
Because, man, it's those inbred Washington power couple families, man. The inbreeding is so deep they can't see each other.
Oh wow!
They're inbreeding a lot of issues.
Then there's that same moment when Christopher Walken comes in and sees the painting and like clocks it, and he totally knows what's happening, right? Like he knows that. That kid has been in that room because he knows that kid is an artist, right? He looks up there and he thinks for a second. And he goes, "Okay." They're like,
like what else can you say, really? Like Christopher Walken, I think, is the only. Him and Rachel McAdams are the only people that are relatively sane in the family. It's just that he's accepted it, and she's just like,
whatever.
Like they each have their own way of accepting it, but I think he's just with the crazy that he runs into in Washington, and then the crazy he comes home to. He's just like, you know what, man, I'm not going to live much longer anyway, so we're just going to go with it.
He's just trying to write his position papers, and he's just like pumped that somebody wants to talk to him about it.
Right, and that's the one thing in this movie that. It really makes me roll my eyes because this is a movie trope where you get the guy that lies about who he is and the dad figure like takes him under his wing and, hey, let's do it off the starboard bow. And he's just like kicking the sail and like, doesn't work. Like that should be a hint and a half for your ass right here. He ain't is who he is.
The question that I kept coming back to during this, and this is not even really about family. It's just like, how long were they there? Weren't they just supposed to like go?
It did seem like a week more rather than a weekend.
Right.
Yeah, but they were there for a couple of days. That just lets you know how long this movie drags on for.
Oh yeah, definitely.
With the crazy family, no way.
Yeah, this is something that we kept saying too, and this I think is also a product of the early 2000s. Is that these comedies are all clocking 2 hours, and they just don't need to.
They really don't. I mean, just like last week when we were talking about it with the bubble, I'm looking at Sharon. I'm like, "Is this over yet?" And she goes, "There's another hour." I'm like, "Fuck!"
We had the same thing.
How much of that though is our attention span has drastically reduced over the last few years?
Oh no! I mean, I can watch Endgame and Infinity War back to back, and I'm just into it. We've been binging the Marvel Netflix Defenders saga on Disney Plus, and I'm still relatively engaged in it.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think that there are these comedies that came out in the early 2000s that the studio forced into like these 2-hour blocks. For the sake of more joke delivery, I guess. I don't know why, because if it gave me 2 hours of story, then I'm for it. But there's this huge chunk in the middle between us getting to the island for this retreat or this like vacation or whatever, and then then the next real story beat is when Sack like discovers their true identity, right? And there's like 45 minutes between those two things where we go on a hunt, we go sailing, we play football. We do all of this stuff. Like, choose two things. Like we don't need the whole thing, right?
Right. And I'm
but
telling
when
you,
watched it originally though, when you first watched it, when it just came out, you weren't as aware of how long it was. Whereas when you're watching it now,
I mean, that's fair.
That's very.
I wonder if it's not because, like, obviously the attention span thing is a legitimate thing for sure.
Right.
But I think that now, like, comedies are just are typically like just snappier. Yeah, Michelle said snappier.
Okay.
They're not forced into these like longer run times.
So our palate's been refined.
I think so.
We've stepped up our comedy, and now that we look back on it, it doesn't hold up.
Yeah, I think that in 2005 they looked at this and they said, "Oh man, we've got freaking Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson on this. We've got Owen Wilson on the track. We got Vince Vaughn on the track. We about to make a banger, right? So we got to get these guys. Like, people will go see this. They will want. Everybody's going to want at least an hour of Owen Wilson and at least an hour of Vince Vaughn. We'll give them 2 of both." Right. And I just don't know that, like, you're right. I don't remember how I felt in 2005 when I watched it. I was probably hammered. I was in college. Right?
Honestly, I think that was a night of me and my friends sitting there eating pizza and laughing at stuff and making jokes. So we're not even paying attention to the whole movie.
Ah, there you go.
But yeah. I think that there are certain genres of films that need to stick to particular runtimes. Comedies need to be in that 90-minute realm, no more than 95. You know, now action movies can sort of do the same thing. Action movies can creep toward a 2-hour mark, you know, depending on what it is. Like, obviously, you know, but even still, some of those can't. Like, Endgame could get away with being 3 hours long.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Endgame could get away.
They needed that runtime,
But
though.
they did,
yes.
But like, say, Ant-Man had better not be past 2 hours. Otherwise, I'm gonna tune out.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the rule, right? Or at least it should be, is that your runtime is only as long as your story dictates, and that you aren't generating more fluff, basically, and comedy is notorious for that, because so much of comedy is jokes, and not every joke contributes to story progression. And knowing when to, like, shut that valve off is so essential. And I feel like they just missed the mark here by maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't know when they started this, but there's a certain aspect of it that comedies started to use the gag reel on the back end during the credits of, you know, the jokes that didn't work, or the jokes that were joke on top of joke on top of joke, and that's kind of what this movie is. It's kind of that portion, that second act is joke on top of joke on top of joke. And it's
and in some cases, you can blame that on improvisational type comedy, where directors will just let their actors just kind of like riff for a while. But I don't think that's what happened here. I don't think that Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson are necessarily like improvisers.
They're not comedians. They're comedic actors, you know, like
Owen Wilson, I wouldn't say, but Vince Vaughn typically
do some of that
he's
stuff.
Able to kind of off the cuff
a little bit. Vince Vaughn here's the thing with Vince Vaughn is one of those rare talent. He's one of those rare actors that you don't realize he's not a comedian, because he can be funny. He has great comedic timing. He has great comedic presence. He's just not a comedian. Like, this guy has shared scenes with how many great comedians? He shared scenes with Will Ferrell, never missed a beat. Now granted, Ben Stiller isn't a comedian, but Ben Stiller is very, very good at what he does. And he was able to hang with Ben Stiller very, very well. So now Owen Wilson, not so much. Owen Wilson, I don't know why the Wilson brothers are famous. I don't know why. Neither one of them are particularly talented. Neither one of them are particularly handsome. But they just have this likability. Like Luke, like the Kardashians, they're not talented, but for whatever reason, they're famous.
I think that in Hollywood, there's a quota for the number of like everyman type actors that that at any given moment there has to be a Owen Wilson, a Jack Black, like that kind of stuff, right? Like, not many of them, right? Like you need one like kind of skinny dude with a busted face. You need one kind of like chubby guy.
A really, really tall guy.
You need a really like tall guy.
Really tall guy.
While we are sort of distracted here, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Bryan, we've received even more messages for you and Sharon on your impending nuptials. Yeah, here is a special message for Bryan and Sharon.
Hey, Plotaholics team, Bill Watterson from Dave Made a Maze here. Congratulations, Bryan, on getting hitched. Wishing you and your partner a lifetime of peace and happiness. And I hope to get to catch you guys on the flip side with another picture one of these days. All right, we'll talk to you soon. All the best.
Oh, that is so awesome! Wow!
Yeah, man. Like I said, family affair here at the Plotaholics, right? Let's see. Back
and just
to
like family, we're arguing.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We
But we all still love each other.
we all still love each other.
I gotta go. I didn't realize it was 3:30. I gotta go get my kids.
Man.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Bryan, Sharon, love, much love.
Love you. Love you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Yes. And Shane, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Fun
Thank
arguing
you for
with you.
coming by. Yeah, always.
All right. Thank you guys. Good luck.
Yeah,
This
take
episode-
care.
We love you. You know, this episode really reminds me of our early days of COVID hangout nights.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do that was definitely fun. That was definitely great. This is
So what
Yeah,
else
it's going
is there
off
to
the rails
say?
just like that too.
What else is there to say, Bryan or Sharon or Michelle or Joe, about Wedding Crashers?
Well, we're going to talk about Will Ferrell jumping into this fray,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
the more egregious, I think, a question that I was going to ask, but I didn't want to bring it up till the end was, is the funeral scenes and the women in the funeral who they hook up with, is that a little bit more egregious than hooking up at a wedding?
So I think it's definitely worse to try to look to get some trim at a funeral.
Yeah.
Because now that is some key emotional manipulation.
Mhm.
Like, look, it's like, look, people get a myriad of positive emotions at times at weddings. And look, I can understand why weddings can cause the libido to increase. Because, look, we all know what the bride and the groom are going to be doing when it's all over. It is what it is. But a funeral, you're taking advantage of grief. And people do a lot of things in grief that they would not do otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So going to a funeral to try to score some trim, that's just low. That's like, why don't you just go to like a sexaholics meeting? That's almost as bad. That would be.
And there's a moment in this film that really sat with me, and I watched it again last night. It reiterated to me the moment where Owen Wilson declares to Vince Vaughn, by the way, he's cleaning up at these things. We should try this. Really, like, irked the hell out of me, and it was like it just reaffirmed that there's no good guy in this movie.
Well, and there's no earned redemption either, right? Like any redemption for these guys is phony.
Lost at that moment. Like if I'm Rachel McAdams and he says that, and when he turns around and start professing his love, I'm like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Red flag. I would argue that, while trying to pick up a lady at a funeral is obviously worse than picking up women at a wedding, I would also argue that their designs are similar, right? That you're still taking advantage of emotionally volatile people. And while at a funeral people are sad and heartbroken, that's one thing, right? And that's why it's worse, is that you're taking advantage of a negative emotion. But at the same time, being at a wedding is an emotional moment, is an emotionally vulnerable and emotionally charged moment as well, right? That you can take advantage of. It's just the other side of that. It's just on the other side of the spectrum, which makes it maybe more understandable or more okay, but it doesn't make it any less manipulation.
Yo, it's still manipulation no matter which way you slice the pie. It's just like people hooking up at holiday parties. You know, I mean,
office
parties in general. Because I mean, especially during the holidays, it's a little bit of both. Because there's people that are just always sad and depressed during the holidays, or they drink even heavier during the holidays, and they're making decisions that they wouldn't normally make. So I think that I think this movie, one of its main suffering points, and Shane, you and I have talked about this multitudes of times with some of these movies that we do, is that behaviors that would be acceptable at one point in time, when you watch them 15, 20 years later, it's just cringe.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, seriously, let's remember when the first time we watched Revenge of the Nerds and we laughed our asses off at the panty raid scene, or we cheered for Lewis when he got Betty. But now we watch it as adults, and it's like, ugh, really?
Yeah,
really?
And that's happened to us a lot of times on this show, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I think your Caddyshack episode is a real big one of those. You know, there's a lot of jokes that you might have laughed at if you were adolescent, but now that you're an adult, you're kind of like, that's stupid. That's not really a good joke.
Oh, yeah. Like we even said it, the Rodney Dangerfield character, he's no better than the Ted Knight character. He's just a different kind of bad.
Yeah, and I think that, like, and I've mentioned How I Met Your Mother a few times, and that Barney Stinson character really, it does become problematic with current views, with, you know, via the like Me Too movement and things like that. The way that he positions himself to take advantage of women, you know, sometimes he outsmarts them, and sometimes he takes advantage of them being drunk, or he takes advantage of them being sad or whatever. But regardless, like, there are a lot of properties that are being made in the early 2000s that show men taking agency away from women when it comes to making choices about their sexuality, right? And who they're going to spend their time with. And if it's, you know, it's obviously, it's sort of the funeral wedding thing, right? It's one thing to get someone drunk and then they like actively consent, and it's another thing to roofie somebody and rape them blatantly. But those two things exist on a similar spectrum, right?
Right. Exactly. And I think that looking at I think that the Will Ferrell aspect of it, when you really look at it, is that it also just shows a different form of toxic masculinity, where this is a guy who is living with, at a time, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, man, when I was living at home, I didn't have any responsibilities, blah, 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 blah. And as a kid, that's like, oh, wow, that's the life, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then as you get to a certain age, that's not even close. That's not even a ha-ha joke. No. It's barely even, it's like, that's just sad.
But he is like, about some meatloaf, though.
He is about that meatloaf. He is all about the meatloaf. I mean, but Will Ferrell, I think that the one thing that this movie did very, very smart, though, is that it presented us an internet troll in the form of the Chaz Reinhold. Because when we think of internet trolls, isn't that Chaz Reinhold right there? Minus being, you know, picking up women at social events. You know, living at home in his 40s, screaming at his mom to bring him something to eat, and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But I'll tell you the one thing. I'm sorry, Michelle.
Michelle had something.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, do you think we needed a worse character in order to redeem the other two as, like, they're bad, but they're not that bad?
Yeah. He's there for sure.
And that's why he's there. We needed someone that was lower down.
But again, like, that's for a movie that's so long, like, invest more story in actually redeeming the shitty people that I'm supposed to like. Like, this is a narrative shortcut, right? That's exactly why he's there. But, like, cut back on the bullshit in the middle and, like, give me an actual redemption arc, right?
Right. Well, Vince Vaughn's character is less of a jerk than the Owen Wilson character.
Yeah.
But he also suffer sort of the same manipulation that he put on the other women.
Yeah.
It was just flipped around on him.
Yeah.
And that's why he fell in love with her, because she manipulated him.
She matched him.
She matched him. And so,
that, like, his revelation of, like,
crazy, man.
yeah, like, whenever she's like, oh no, I wasn't a virgin, right? Like, and he's like, wait a minute, what is happening? Like, that was one of the finer moments in the film for sure.
it really was. I really enjoyed seeing the female character sort of take power.
Mhm.
She took power, and I like that. But at the same, now, is it a good thing to do to manipulate someone? No, but it was funny.
Now, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I also like how they turned the trope of the dad supporting his daughters. You know, they turned that a little bit too, and that the fact that he's like, hey, look, man, I just want my daughters to be happy. I don't care who they're with, you know. And I thought that was a really good moment for this movie.
Yes, because too many times we see these movies where the dad pushes on the daughter to be with who they want.
Yeah.
And now I'm surprised that with what we know of Christopher Walken, when Sack called himself ordering her, that dad didn't just get up and punch him in the face.
I was waiting for that.
Because, talk to my baby girl like that. Or I will knock you into another tomorrow. Not even tomorrow. Another one.
Yeah.
I haven't decided which one yet. Until then, you'll stay dead until I give you permission to live again.
I gets older.
Oh, yeah. Oh, let my granddaughter bring a dude home like that. Shit. Like, go outside and point. Why? Because that's where his ass is going to get buried when I'm done.
But like Joe's point is a good one, that there's not a good guy in this movie. They're all just like different kinds of bad, or they're neutral.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Christopher Walken's character is like maybe the closest to a good guy that we get. But he's mostly just neutral.
I think he's very, very neutral. I think Rachel McAdams is, until the end, our only, like, she's actually our victim.
Yeah.
If anything, he's the victim of the story. And I'll tell you the truth. Jumping back onto the Isla Fisher character for a second, she also played into, she manipulated the ego that we as men do tend to have. I mean, how many times, and guys, we've heard this, and ladies, I'm sure you've heard it too. Heard guys talk about how they like to conquer virgins. And so what did she do? She catered into his ego to make him think that that's what he did. And then made him feel special, and then
drew him in.
Bryan, I was going to ask you, this is really a question for anybody. If you lived in a place like DC, you live in Pittsburgh, that's like similar in size, probably major metropolitan area, right? Like, so let's say you were in your 30s, right? And you were going to a bunch of weddings. How many weddings in the same city, in the same age group, do you think you could attend before you would start to see people that you knew?
I think it would definitely happen, because here's the thing with DC. Granted, Washington, D.C. in and of itself serves, parts of Virginia and the like. Right. So, but the problem is that in these affluent areas, you're going to start to overlap. Just like, certain time, like if you go to multiple weddings in a certain section of Pittsburgh, say Bethel Park, you're really going to run into somebody that you met at the last wedding.
Yeah, it just seemed crazy to me that they went to every wedding for 3 weeks and they never had, like, no one was ever like, hey, weren't you guys like...
They had been going into different sections of like Virginia and, in that area, going into Tennessee.
They also did it where, like, they went to a Jewish wedding, they went to an Italian wedding.
That's fair.
So that's there could be segments there. They were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least like working off of the theory that no one in those religions have friends from outside of their faith, right?
You know what? The one thing that I really grew tired of in this time period's tropes is the gay characters being like their homosexuality sort of being coupled with a mental illness. I'm really glad that we're getting away from that.
Yeah.
And the little old granny who, AKA rapping granny from The Wedding Singer, like she's doing a Betty White and Bringing Down the House impression that's nowhere near. It's not as good, and it's actually more hurtful because I think with Betty White's and for those that never saw Bringing Down the House, she played a similar character, but she was a neighbor, and she made a crack about Mexicans in the area and blah 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 blah. But I think that hers was a little bit less of a bite to it. I think because in the Betty White aspect of it, and maybe it's just me, but maybe it's because there were no, Latinx people in the main roles of that film, and one of our leads was Queen Latifah. That sort of made her role less, I guess, less problematic. Where with this, it's an all WASP cast with, and now we have a gay guy that they're portraying to be this crazy sexual stalker, and he's also the butt of the family joke. It was
like this time period used gayness as like a punchline. Almost every time you had a gay character in a film, it was for a punchline.
And so I'm really, really glad that we're away from that, because I didn't even laugh at any points when that character was on screen. Only time I really got any sort of a reaction to that character was the attempted rape of Vince Vaughn's character. And it's like, why is that? Like, now you're really perpetrating a negative stereotype that all straight guys think that all gay guys are just trying to have sex with them. Meanwhile, I remember when I was bouncing in a gay bar, and this one gay guy goes, "The funniest thing to me is when a straight guy tells me not to touch him." He's like, "Honey, I wouldn't touch you with someone else's dick and them pushing. Not even close to my type." And it's like God.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, the funniest part of that character was the art stuff. Like, his art stuff, as played for laughs, worked for me more than
make fun of artists. Make fun of him because he's an artist.
Yeah,
not because he's gay with some mental health issues.
Yeah,
I mean, we
definitely deserve that as artists.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, absolutely. Like, please make fun of me for being for my writing habits and blah blah blah. Please, because it's ridiculous even to me.
Right. Is there, like, we are starting to wind down here, Bryan. I have one more special message for you.
Ooh, another one?
Yeah, this is our final little message here for Bryan and Sharon as they prepare for their wedding next week.
Hey, congratulations. It's Alyssa Kempinski, and I just wanted to say congrats on your wedding today, Bryan and Sharon. I heard all about it. I can't believe it sounds like it's been such a journey, and you're finally there. So congrats. Enjoy today. And I look forward to chatting with you soon sometime. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you have the best day. Bye.
Oh,
yeah.
Some of my favorite interviews that we've ever done. Oh my goodness, that is so awesome.
That is pretty cool.
I'm still
now. If only the Velocipaster could have officiated your wedding.
Exactly. It turned into the raptor. Like right before he said, "I now pronounce you man," and one just
that paper mache dinosaur would have been so
cool.
Is the officiant dressing up?
No, he refused. Because I'm wearing my collar.
Oh, you want to explain the whole thing with that?
I heard it off air. I heard it.
Okay.
Yeah, Shane heard it. Okay. Shane has heard it, and Joe's heard it.
All right.
We won't throw anybody on the bus.
We're not going to do bus throwing. But he refused to put it on, so I'm just going to have to find someone else to wear it.
So Bryan and Joe and Sharon and Michelle, Wedding Crashers was made on a $40 million budget and it grossed $288.5 million at the box office.
Certified fresh still to this day on Rotten Tomatoes with a 75% rating on the tomato meter with a 70% audience score.
That's right.
It's still, I mean, can we call it a cult classic at this point? I don't think so.
Because it doesn't even seem like it's a cult classic. It just feels like people like it.
People just enjoy it. It's one of those things where it's a taste thing, I guess. At this point, it's just a taste thing, and I think that this is definitely a film that's made for a younger viewer. It's not. I think once you get to be about 34, 35, that's when I think you grow out of this.
Is it younger viewer today or younger if you were a younger viewer in 2005?
If you were a younger viewer in 2005, because I think that I think Gen Zers today are going to see some of the jokes in this.
I think the runtime's going to be problematic for them too. So
it was problematic for me.
Definitely a problem for me. I want my dramas to be 2 hours or so. I don't want my comedies.
I've never looked up a comedy and saw a 2 hour runtime and got excited for it. Right, like no matter who's in it, I'm like, oh god.
Man, you could bring Red Fox back. You could bring Red Fox and Richard Pryor back to life, and I'm just gonna because I think that was part of the issue with. I think Harlem Nights is different because Harlem Nights wasn't even billed as a comedy. It's a heist film with comedians in it. It's not billed as a comedy, which I think is the only thing that saved it from a similar problem because there's an actual story.
Yeah.
But I think this is a film here that if it were 20 minutes shorter with I still say different leads. I mean if you insist on having a Vince Vaughn in it, then you should probably have someone else, like a Ben Stiller.
Like Vince Vaughn should never be the hot friend.
No, God,
not what I was expecting when I saw it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty wild to me. Let's get Bartender Smiley in the mix and get into our ratings. I'll open the floor one last time. Sharon, Michelle, Joe, anything you guys would like to add to the end?
I'm good.
All right. Bartender Smiley to explain how our ratings work.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
I feel like I've been giving a lot of these this lately, and so I'll just go ahead and jump out in front here. It's a 3-shot for me. It's very middle of the road. It is not the funniest comedy. It's definitely not funny enough to warrant a long runtime. If the bits were like, it's like somebody was like, hey, you know what's a funny idea? Like, what if guys that weren't invited to weddings actually went to weddings in order to hook up with people there? And they were like, awesome, I'll give you 2 hours and $55 million. And then they had to come up with a story for it, right? And it's just like, it's pretty telegraphed from the jump what's going to happen once you get through that initial montage. I think that a better movie takes the first hour to explore that 3 weeks of wedding week. Like, give them a little bit more to do. Don't just, like, that's the most interesting part of the movie.
Don't yada yada.
Yeah, right. They yada yada the best part of it. So for me, like, there are a lot of movies that are better. There are a lot that are worse, but this is just very middle of the road for me. So that's a 3-shotter.
Yeah.
Let's go to one of our. We'll sandwich the reviews here with our picks there, Brian. So we'll save you for last. Michelle or Joe?
I would probably give it a 3, maybe a 3.5. Just because
that's 3 shots and a beer chaser. If you're keeping track.
Well, I think it definitely didn't age well because I vaguely remember watching it the first time and actually enjoying it. And now, like, looking back on it, like we've said, there were a lot of cringy, sort of wouldn't fly in this time kind of moments. So that's why I lean a little more to the worst side. But very, like, middle of the road. It was fine. Would I watch it again anytime soon? Probably not. Would I watch it for enjoyment? Also probably not. But
it should have been a short film that ended after that first montage, right? Like that.
We drank, no, for real though, like we had drinks with the movie. We drank an entire drink in the montage and then a whole second drink for the entire rest of the
Yeah,
movie.
like we had established rules, right? And the rules were things like different weddings, different aliases, different backstories. Anytime you see nudity, like, and so like we are blitzed
Hammered.
after the first 15 minutes, and then we just got sober the
Nothing.
rest of the time. Like,
Nothing.
Wow.
So,
That no movie should ever shoot for that.
Especially a comedy.
yeah, right. Joe, your thoughts?
I'm with Michelle. I think it is a 3-shot film with a beer chaser. I would have given it 4 if not for. I mean, as Michelle said, I was less offended when I saw it in 2005, and I'm kind of a little bit more offended by a couple of the jokes now than I would have been in 2005. But there is also a couple moments that I think save it from being a 4-shot rating, like the Christopher Walken redemption, and that. So I'm in for the beer chaser in 3 shots.
Nice. Sharon.
I would give it 3 too. That was my first time seeing it actually. So it was definitely not what I was expecting.
Right. So as someone who did not see it originally and you see it like for the first time like this, how did the jokes play for you? Like, was it immediately clear that this was like a dated sort of thing?
No, some of it I was like, what is this? And then it was like, okay, where are they trying to go with this? And then, okay, it's just there.
Like some of the jokes, it's so surprising that this movie is a 2005 flick. It feels like this thing is like, it feels like this script could have been written in the
late 90s.
70s or 80s. Yeah.
I think this film definitely hits better if it's like a 10 years earlier. I'll tell you the truth. I'm just gonna go and give this a straight up 4-shot rating just to be different. But I'll tell you my whole problematic thing with this, and we've already sort of said it. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, they're not the best choices for this. If you're gonna have Vince Vaughn in this, fine, but again, he shouldn't be the hot friend.
He should be the goofy, funny wingman.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly who he should be. Like, honestly, what would have made this better for me is, you know what? Maybe Tom Cruise plays the Owen Wilson character. I was thinking that just for something different, so you can actually. Funny. Yeah, that would be funny. Or maybe if it turns out that one of them was gay, maybe that would have made it different.
That would have been a
This movie is so, like, you already know where this movie is going. You know who's who within the first couple of minutes of the film. Bradley Cooper's character, Sack, is such a one-dimensional cartoon. And like the scenes with them playing football, it's like, come on, like it's so overkill. It's way overkill, and it really, really screams. It's almost like it was trying to even go into the Meet the Parents type of vibe. Yeah. It was overly competitive stuff, and it worked with Meet the Parents. It doesn't work here.
Did you guys think that his name was Zach at any point?
I mean, it's like when they kept saying Sack, and it's like, so what is his first name? Balls?
Well, right. Like, I thought it was Zach for a while, and then like when they played football and he tackled Vince Vaughn, the other guy was like, "That's what you call a sack attack," and I was like, "But that wasn't a sack. Like he got rid of the ball before he got tackled."
And then we realized.
And then I was like, "Oh, his name is Sack."
They're playing by XFL rules.
Right.
There you go. And I'll tell you the truth though, I really despise. I mean, look, am I going to go so far as to call myself a feminist? I'd rather not put a label on it. I don't want to put a label on the idea that women should be respected. So I really don't like the way Rachel McAdams is portrayed. I like the way Isla Fisher is portrayed, all things considered. The Jane Seymour like predatory cougar aspect. I mean, it's one of those things that's played for laughs. It's done so often. You already knew it was coming. There's no surprises in this film. I think the only reason why this movie made as much money as it did is because this was at the height of Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson's powers. That's it. And then people realized that they were better than that.
Yeah, as I'm listening to everybody talk about it, to me it's like the people that wrote this movie watched American Pie and Meet the Parents, and they're like, I want to make something that does that, but then they picked all the worst parts of those movies to try to make. They didn't accurately see what made those movies work.
Right.
Actually, I think they made a better movie in The Intern later on.
Yeah. I think they did a better movie when they made the American Reunion and American Wedding. Actually, I think all the American Pie movies except for the 2 spinoffs were like better movies than this.
Well, and this is something that we're going to have to revisit. We need to do American Pie. We've rewatched all of them recently, and they held up much better than I thought they would.
Really? I'm going to have to watch those because
they are not without their problems, but they did hold up better than I thought.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, the webcam scene alone.
That's kind of the most problematic thing in the whole trilogy, I think, in the whole original trilogy.
Yep. Well, now, have you watched the American Reunion where they went back for their high school reunion?
I don't think I've seen that one.
I would check that one out as well and see how that one holds up as well.
Which is the one where they go to the lighthouse?
Shit, I think that...
Is that Wedding?
I think that's Wedding.
Yeah, when he goes and sees, what's her face? What is her name? Nadia or whatever?
Yeah.
In the lighthouse. Yeah, that's the last one I've seen.
Okay, yeah, it's American one. Because I mean, I watched them up until Band Camp, and when I watched Band Camp, I was like, I am beyond insulted. Why did you make this? I am never watching another American Pie movie.
Brian, we did talk about doing a softcore porn summer. So maybe we do a bunch of American Pies, and we could throw Porky's in the mix.
Problematic, yeah.
Maybe we'll just call it Problematic Summer.
Problematic Summer. I think that's
the summer of poorly aged films.
And then we'll end with one of the Andy Sedaris films that Buff Bagwell's in. Maybe we can get him to come on the show.
There you go. But next week, Brian, it looks like we are going to get into Hot to Trot. Finally,
we're going to do. Finally, I never thought I needed so badly to hear the voice of John Candy. God damn it! Ah! Now, Sharon, when that movie came in the mail, and Sharon saw the look of excitement on my face, she goes, "What'd you get?" And I was like, "Hot to Trot." And she goes, "What the hell is that?" And then I put it on, and we're watching it, and she's like, "You find this funny?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
So I can't wait to watch Hot to Trot for next week's episode. And by next week, I mean if you're watching us live on Twitch right now, 2 weeks from now, and if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, I'm talking about next week. We're really kind of twisted up here right now. But if you keep listening, eventually we'll talk about Hot to Trot.
Yeah, and, we're definitely having end-game level time paradoxes.
Yeah, and before we go, I just want to thank I want to thank Joe for stopping by. I want to thank Katie for stopping by. Big shouts to Al from over at the Twitter, Alyssa Kempinski from the Velocipaster, and Bill Watterson, the director and writer of Dave Made a Maze, for sending in their clips. It was really cool of them to do that. And Brian, Sharon, I'm so happy for you guys. I can't wait to see the pictures of everyone in their costumes.
Can't wait.
And I told Brian, or threatened to Brian earlier, that when I get the Zoom link for the wedding, I'm going to actually broadcast it on Twitch. And I'm going to do a Mystery Science Theater play-by-play.
You, Joe, and Katie can do that because that's what Joe and Katie are going to do anyway.
That's right. So, we'll all sit with our backs to the camera, and I'll put all three of us in the bottom right-hand corner, like we're like there watching it.
I'm in.
But anyway,
thank you for having me again. I always love being here, and congratulations, guys! Really,
Thank you.
Means
And,
a lot.
I definitely want to give the hardest of heartfelt thanks. It's been a long road. Those of us that have been here with us through all of it. I mean, you guys have really, really done a lot to help us get to this point. Just keeping us sane with all of the cancellations and the postponements. And even though, things aren't happening the way we wanted them to, it's happening and everyone's involved in it. And I just appreciate everything that you guys did to make this episode, this day so special. Bill, thank you so much.
Yes.
That interview was such a good time to be had, and it meant more to me than you realize. And Alyssa, thank you so much. It really meant a lot, and this podcast is probably, of all the endeavors that I do, any endeavor that I ever do, it's definitely a favorite because I get to do what I love doing with one of my best friends. I love watching movies. I love talking movies, and I love this community, this family that we've built over these last few years. And as it continues to grow, it just means so much. So thank you so much.
Well, we will let you guys gallop off into the sunset with those kind words. Any final thoughts from anybody on the panel?
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, everybody. We will see you guys again real soon.
Yep.
Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo. Oh my God! If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will send a phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow with whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.